me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. So basically my mom wasn't strict at all and she let me do almost anything that I wanted. But when it came to dating, it was a whole different story. I mean, she let me start dating at 12 years old, but every single time I told her I had a boyfriend, the first thing that she would say is, he better be white. And she'd always say, if it ain't white, it ain't right. Mind you, my preference was mixed and dark-skinned boys. So of course, I'm going to go after to what I'm attracted to. And at 14, I started dating this kid and I asked my mom if I could invite my boyfriend to my birthday. We weren't really doing anything big. It was kind of just like a family party with a couple friends. And she said yes. Mind you, she had never met him or seen a picture of him, so she was kind of excited to meet him. So my birthday comes around and he gets there. And as soon as he walked into the door, I gave him a big hug and my mom turned around and gave me the most evil look ever. She pulled me aside and her exact words were, "Is this a joke?" And she literally said, "I trusted you enough to not bring this kind of hood in our house." I'm running out of time for this part 2. Part 2 of how my mom kicked me out at age 15 because she found out I was dating a mixed boy. Continuing with the story, after the party, I had asked him to stay for like an hour or two later. And afterwards, my mom was just being completely rude the entire time towards him. And right in front of him, she screamed at me and said, "I don't want this type of black trash in my house. Please get it out." Mind you, I hate disrespecting my mom and I never talked back to her. But I yelled back at her and said that was the most disrespectful thing she could have ever said. And while all this is happening, he looks like he's about to bust into tears. Like, I genuinely know this kid had a soft spot for me. So I apologize and I tell him I think it's best for him to leave. And afterwards he FaceTimes me and he tells me that he will do anything to be able to keep me. And after he leaves, my mom tells me that I'm a big disgrace to the family and she doesn't want me living there no more. All over me bringing a mixed guy to the house. I'm now 19 and I'm still with him. And I really haven't talked to my mom since. But that day she kicked me out and I had to go stay with his family. She still wants nothing to do with me because I'm still with a mixed guy. Mom, if you're listening to this, you're a racist. Storytime of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. So I never really liked my stepmom in the first place because she was a little controlling over my dad. And I just knew that she hated me and I really hated her too. But you know, my dad was in love and he seemed happy, so I didn't really say anything. And my dad would always take me to lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. And we'd have like a dad-daughter bonding day, I guess. And me and my dad were just super close. And every single weekend, me going to lunch with him would start an argument between them two because she said I was taking time away from them two. My dad really never chose sides, but I never really got involved in the relationship as much as I hated her because I just loved seeing my dad happy. Also, at this time, I was 15. And what I'm about to say next might sound just a little crazy and unbelievable, but I'm not sure who she was on the phone with. But while on the phone with somebody, she was talking about getting rid of me. Mind you, my mom had passed away when I was younger, and I really had no other family to go to. Now, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse and she tries to get rid of me. I'm running out of time for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. Continuing on with the story, I don't know who she was on the phone with, but I overheard her on the phone saying that she was going to get rid of me. And honestly, I didn't really care and I didn't really think anything of it because I knew she was crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. So all of a sudden, she started making me breakfast. And I'm not a breakfast person. I can't eat right when I get up. So every time she would make me breakfast, I'd be like, "Thanks, but I'm not hungry." And she would get so mad. Like, so freaking mad. I'm not going to get into all the little details, but comes to find out, she was putting rat poison in my food. She had set up cameras in my room. And I don't know what kind of sense this makes. I think she's just crazy, but she started to hide snakes in my room and claim it was my fault that the snakes were coming in my room. Yeah, doesn't really make any sense. Once I told my dad and my dad got out of his little in love stage with her, he finally stepped up and said something to her. And she admitted that she wanted me dead. He eventually called the cops, and to this day, she is in jail for attempted murder. Oh, did I forget to mention the day that he broke up with her, she tried to stab me in the throat. Storytime of how my entire virtual online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them ended up telling my mom. So due to COVID where I live, there is no in-person school, so everybody is virtual. So I was in my first block and you only have to turn on your cameras for when she does attendance and then when you're talking. So I was called on and I had to answer questions, so I unmuted myself and I turned on my camera. And then when I was done, I turned off my camera and I think I forgot to mute myself back. After that, during that week, I was already having a pregnancy scare, so I FaceTimed my boyfriend and I went to go take a pregnancy test. Mind you, I don't really listen in class to begin with, so I turned the volume all the way back down because when the teacher calls on you once, she doesn't call on you again. So again, I couldn't hear anything happening in the classroom. So I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I was freaking out while I was taking a pregnancy test, and it ended up coming back positive. So I started freaking out and I started bawling my eyes out. And in my room, I was screaming, I'm pregnant, what am I gonna do? I look back over and the session had ended. And everyone in that class is texting me like, "Oh my God, are you okay? I'm here for you, blah, 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 blah." So of course I start to freak out. I'm running out of time for part 2. Part 2 of how my whole entire online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them told my mom. So continuing with the story, I texted a couple of them back and I was like, how did you know? And they were like, "We heard you sobbing in the background screaming, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant." Then one of them goes, "We heard some guy in the background screaming, just get a hanger," and you were screaming, "No!" Then one of them comes to tell me that the teacher had to start a brand new class because I wouldn't mute myself. So then I emailed my teacher and I told her that I was going through a really hard time and I really do apologize. And then she explained to me that everything was fine, like she understands things happen. So we were all good until like 3 days later. And my mom calls me telling me that somebody in my class had told her that I am pregnant. And I tried telling her like, no, like that is not true. That is not true whatsoever. And then she sends me a recording that somebody else sent her of me in my room bawling my eyes out screaming, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do. So somebody in my class was a big old snitch and sent a recording of me screaming I'm pregnant to my mom. And my mom is trying to force me to get an abortion, but I don't want to. To sum it up, I'm moving in with my grandma because she's super, super supportive. And in 3 months, I'll be having a baby boy. Story time of how I burned down my entire house when I was 8 years old. So basically, we had so many candles in the house, I guess just because my mom was obsessed with candles. I was also obsessed with fire. So every time I seen the candle, I would put my finger in the fire. And no, it didn't hurt me whatsoever. I guess it was just amusing to me. And everybody called me a pyro. So one day I was scrolling on Musical.ly, and on like the Feature Me page, I saw something with a candle. And it was like how to make your own candle or something like that. But you had to make your own candle out of a candle. So I went into my room and I closed my door. And like the first step was melting the candle all the way. So I lit the candle and then I put a piece of paper in there. I don't know why I did, but I did. And the fire started getting so big, so I lifted the piece of paper and I threw it on my rug. And I didn't want to get in trouble for fire on the floor, so I just left my room and left it alone. And I kid you not, just a couple minutes later, I hear the smoke detector going off. And my older brother screaming. I'm running out of time, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how I burned down my entire house at just 8 years old. So continuing with the story, after I hear the smoke alarms going off and my brother screaming, I knew exactly what I did. And I blamed it all on my brother. And to this day, they still think it's my brother. Even though it was in my room, but my family believed whatever I said. Anyways, the whole back side of the house was on fire, and we all rush out of the house. And of course, my mom takes care of it. I'm pretty sure she called 911. Well, duh. Sadly, our 2 cats, 2 bunnies, and 4 hamsters were in the house. And our bird, but our bird was getting ready to pass anyways. I'm not sure how, but the house caught on fire so quickly, and the entire thing just blew up into flames. There might have been something else that the fire triggered to make it more big, I guess. I don't really know how to word that. But we ended up raising enough money to move to a different house because we lost every single one of our belongings. When the house burned down, there was only one wall standing, and it was the wall of pictures of my grandma who passed 10 years ago.
My mind is always on rewind. I've lost my sense of time. Where's my flame to hide? Here by this night, stars all over the sky. It lights my beauty inside. Oh, what a beautiful life here. This time I know where I have to pull myself in down there.
Story time about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So a little background information. This had all started as soon as my dad left my mom and I. I was like 13 around the time. Well, ever since then, my mom would have different guys in and out of the house all the time. Like, we were lucky if a month went by and she was still with the same dude. Which, I mean, I kind of get it because my dad did leave us for a woman that he had started another family with. But at the same time, it was just a whole mess. Anyway, so she had got with this new guy, and we're gonna call him Tyler. And by the way, the dudes that she would date, they would literally live at our house. Anyway, so a week after he moved in, I started getting really close to him, which usually never happens. Usually I would try to keep my distance because I knew how wrong it was of her having all these different guys in the house when I'm only 16. Anyways, every time that my mom would go to work, he would invite me to go see a movie, and he would just be really flirty with me. And he was only 6 years older than me, and my mom was 32. You do the math. Anyways, like for part 2. Part 2 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, the guy was being super flirty with me, inviting me to the movies when my mom wasn't home and all that stuff. Well, then it led to more than just that. By the way, this guy did not have a job, so he was home with me 24/7. And I was doing online school. So we were in the house by ourselves, 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. Anyways, like I said, it led to more, and we started doing the nasty and stuff. Ew, just, yeah. Well, the one day after we got done doing the nasty in my mom's room, we had fell asleep. And yes, we did not have clothes on. Well, at 2 in the morning, I hear someone pounding on the bedroom door, and my mom worked night shifts. So we get up, he hurries up and gets dressed and tells me to hide under the bed, and he opens the door, and it's my mom's sister. My sister literally lived in the apartment next door, and she was like, oh yeah, neither of you were answering the phone, so she wanted me to check on you guys, like, where's Elena? And I'm still under the bed naked, like for part 3. Part 3 about why my mom kicked me out when I was 16. So like I said, I'm laying under the bed, no clothes on. She asks where I am. And he's like, oh, she should be in her room. So he goes looking for me everywhere with her. And he's like, oh, well, maybe she's outside on the patio. And I don't know why the hell my mom's sister had a key to our apartment anyways. But she's still looking for me in the apartment and she looks under the fucking bed. And at first she's like, oh my god, what did he do to you? And I'm trying to tell her nothing, like I made that decision on my own. So she calls my mom right away. My mom comes home, she's screaming at me, and she kicks me out. So I go to my grandma's house, and I told my grandma what happened. And my grandma calls her, and she's like, it's not her fault that you gave her daddy issues. And I'm like, bruh, what the fuck? Child, anyways, so then she goes on Facebook and starts posting about how I'm a whore and a slut and how, like, it isn't her boyfriend's fault at all. So now story time about how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So a little background information. This all happened last year. So originally I was working in a warehouse, but whenever COVID hit, lost my job, I had to get a new job. So I applied at Walmart in the electronics section because they paid more money, period. And on my second day, I finally went and started working in electronics. So they had asked some of the employees to show me around. So while this one employee was showing me around, he took me to the back where the photos were. Well, whenever I got back there, this employee named Terry said, oh, she's mine. I just laughed and brushed it off because I felt super uncomfortable and awkward. And he knew I was underage because my name tag was yellow. But even after that, he still kept coming up to me, calling me weird names, just being a total creep. Like, he would keep coming up to me and get super close to me to the point where I could literally feel him fucking breathing on my face. So, of course, I told my manager about it. They said he's done this before, so I was like, why the fuck is he still here? So they moved me to garden. And while I was working in the gardening section, I met this guy named Jordan. Like, for a part 2. Part 2 of how I was sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. Something I forgot to mention in the first part, I reported Terry several times and they still did nothing about it. So like I said, then I met this kid Jordan, him and I started getting close, and work actually started to become fun. Well, finally, after a month, we decided that we were going to go out to lunch during work. So the day that we went out to lunch, he kept telling me that he needed to tell me something. But he was like beating around the bush the whole time. Like, for some reason, he just couldn't get out what he wanted to tell me. But then he kept trying to change the subject like he wasn't the one who brought it up in the first place. I should have took that as a red flag before we went to lunch, but I didn't. So he keeps going on about it in the car, right? And then he's like, I'm not really 20, I'm 25 turning 26. So then for some reason after that, whenever he saw my mood change, this guy has the audacity to start touching my legs, fucking rubbing my inner thigh and shit. I kept telling him to stop. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? So then I told him I'm getting out of the car. And he says, I'm not gonna let you like for part 3. Part 3 of how I got sexually harassed twice while working at Walmart. So like I said, he wouldn't let me out of the car, but then we got back to work. And then he had the audacity to keep asking if I was okay when he literally just sexually harassed me in the car. So I went to the bathroom, literally had a whole fucking mental breakdown. I called my mom to come get me because I was not finna stay there. So the next time that I went back to work, I grabbed my stuff and I gave it to one of the workers to go and give to a manager and tell them that I was quitting. Well, one of the managers caught me walking out the back door and she was like, what's wrong? So I immediately broke down. I started telling her what was going on. And then a crowd of people came around us being nosy as fuck, listening to what I was saying. And she was like, you're not quitting. I'm gonna take care of this. So she sent me home and she said that she would call me whenever it was taken care of. So 2 days goes past. I'm like, why the fuck hasn't she called? So then I call and I found out that she fired me. So I reported everything to Walmart ethic team and they just closed my case. They basically didn't do shit about it. Oh, and Jordan wasn't really a manager. He was a supervisor. Should I try to take this to court? Alright, so this is for my ladies who are 18 and up, so if you are not, please keep scrolling. So lately my boyfriend and I have been trying some new stuff in the bedroom. We went on the website Ballesta and got some new toys for me. And I want to show you one of them because it's literally my favorite thing on earth. This thing has helped me through some hard times. Story time about one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in high school. So a little background information. I was in my freshman year of high school. Well, spring break was coming up. Well, the whole year my friend and I hadn't been to one single party. So we decided that we wanted to try and go to a party every single day of spring break. Which was about to be super difficult because we had to worry about my strict ass parents and my neighbors. A little background info on my neighbor. My neighbor is this girl who's in my same grade and she literally hates my guts. I don't know why, but literally anything that I do, she'll go and she'll tell her mom and then her mom will tell my mom. Because my mom and her mom are best friends. But before we know it, Saturday comes around. And we go back to school on Monday. We did not make it to one single party. Well, later that night, we found out that one of our friends was throwing one. So around 11 o'clock, everybody's sleeping and I walk out my back door, hop over my fence, and I start heading towards the road where my friend was going to be parked. You know, who do I see fucking sitting outside on their porch reading a fucking book? My fucking neighbor. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, the bitch that I hate is sitting out on her porch reading a fucking book at 11 o'clock at night. So I crouch down so she couldn't see me. I run to the car and my friend and I finally go to the party. Well, we get to that party and it's really boring, so we decided to go to a different one. And the party that we were about to go through was being thrown by the kid that I really liked. So I start hanging out with him when we get there. I'm drinking a lot, having so much fun, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And I didn't know where anything was at all, so I grabbed my friend and we're looking around everywhere for the bathroom. Because when I asked him, he was super drunk and really couldn't explain to me where the bathroom was. So we were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. But we ended up not being able to find a bathroom, and this is where I had to improvise. So my friend and I go to the laundry room, and we see the litter box in there for the cat. Well, at this point, I was desperate, so I just went in the litter box. Well, 30 minutes later, the cops show up to the party. And everybody had to hurry up and leave because we did not want to get underages. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, I went in the litter box and then the cops showed up. We all ran because we didn't want to get underages. I was able to sneak back into my house without anybody knowing. But when I get to school on Monday, everybody's talking about the party. And apparently the kid that I liked who threw the party, his parents didn't know that he threw one at all. And this was like during first period. So I went to text him and ask him if he was grounded because we were supposed to hang out the next day. And I realized that I am blocked. So I'm thinking, what the fuck? Why does he have me blocked? So I told my friend that he blocked me, and she goes, it's probably because he saw what you did in the laundry room. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no fucking way that he knows. Because there was a door that led to the outside in the laundry room. There were cameras in there. So everybody saw this video of me. People were posting it on their Finstas, posting it on their Snapchat stories. It was so fucking embarrassing. Not to
Hated my cat to begin with. So one day we come in about 30 minutes earlier than we usually do, and we see my dad shaving my cat. He told me that something was wrong with her and all her fur was gonna fall off anyways. And you know, I believe him because why would I think my dad's gonna cook my cat? He said he was gonna take care of it. So I run to my room and I start crying because, you know, my cat's hurt. So 20 minutes of crying goes by. And I come out to see my dad trying to cook my kitty. Oh my god, time like for part 2. Part 2 of how my dad was gonna cook my cat. So then I walk into my kitchen and I see my dad literally trying to cook my cat. My cat is in the oven, just laying there. So I start freaking out. I literally start screaming and panicking, and my dad is laughing his butt off. Like crazy type laugh. I grab my cat out of the oven and it's literally not moving. And he tells me that he gave it some type of shot to make it like the shot makes the cat get injected out of the game. So basically the cat won't live no more. If he hated the cat, why didn't he just put it down or give it away or not cook it? This may be a little detail, but my cat's head decided to like expand because of the heat. Yeah, probably the most traumatizing experience I've ever had. Oh, I do not live with my dad anymore. Honestly, I was scared he was gonna try to cook me next. My mom never did anything about it. Mom, if you see this, you're literally just as crazy as he is. And the minute I turn 18, I'm out of this house. And all I have to say is, Dad, if you're seeing this, I literally hope somebody cooks you in the oven or in a big old melting pot like the witches do. Storytime of how I found out that my little sister's teacher hid cameras in their bathroom. So my sister at the time was in 2nd grade and they have bathrooms inside their classroom. Well, it's just one bathroom inside the classroom that they all use. And at that school, 4th grade and below, every single classroom has a bathroom inside the room so the kids don't have to wander the halls. So parents' conferences that night started at 6 o'clock and ours was scheduled for about 6:30. But we ended up not being able to make it at 6:30 because we had to do something, so we ended up coming around 7:45. Which at the time, everybody was already gone. So we go, and my parents sit down with the teacher, and they talk. We had gone to Sonic before that, and I got a blue raspberry slushie, and I ended up spilling that all over the floor. So I run into the bathroom, and I grab a bunch of paper towels, and right when I got in there, something just felt really weird to me. So after I cleaned it up, I walked back into the bathroom, and in the top right of the bathroom, in the corner, there was a box with a hole in it. I text my mom what I saw, and right after I get out of the bathroom, she says she has to go to the bathroom. I'm running out of time like for this crazy Storytime of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. I'm even pretty sure there's a couple articles on this. So basically living in the house was me, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister. This story ends up taking a huge twist, so just stay tuned for that. Also keep in mind that my boyfriend's name at the time was Jacob. When I first started to notice that there was somebody else in my house was when I first started dating Jacob. Mind you, the only time anybody in my entire family has ever been in the attic is the first 2 months that we lived there, and it was only once or twice, and we never seen anything up there. So we would notice that bits of our food would go missing, and every time we packaged leftovers, the leftovers in the Tupperware that we packaged the leftovers in would just completely disappear. And a bunch of my stuff would always go missing. For example, 2 of my pillows and 4 of my blankets gone missing, and my shoes and my clothes, and even my underwear. So one day my boyfriend came over and he left around 1 a.m. So the rest of my family was sleeping. Also, I have the whole entire upstairs to myself, and my mom, dad, and my sister sleeps downstairs. This story just ends up getting really crazy, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that there was a guy living in my attic. Continuing with the story, I go downstairs and I walk my boyfriend out to the car. Of course, trying to be quiet because the rest of my family is sleeping. So I go back upstairs. Mind you, I have the whole upstairs to myself. And then I go to the bathroom and there was pee in the toilet. And on the wall in front of the toilet, it said Jacob was here with a heart. So I took a picture of it and I posted it on my private story because I just thought it was funny and cute at the same time. And he slid up and said, what? And then he sworn up and down that it wasn't him. So anyways, it freaked me out at first, but at the same time, I didn't really care. So I didn't really pay any mind to it. So to speed the story up, my dad had to go in the attic for something, and he found an actual mattress covered in insulation. And in the corner, he found a guy. The guy looked very sickly, skinny, but scary at the same exact time. So, of course, my dad called 911 right away, and the guy admitted to stealing our food, stealing my underwear, stealing things out of my room, basically stealing from us overall, stealing our food, etc. I'm running out of time, but he ended up being a wanted criminal, but he's in jail now, so yeah. Story time of how my crazy ex-stepmom tried to kidnap me. So my mom and dad are divorced, obviously. Okay, so here's some information that you need to keep in mind. My dad and my so-called stepmom are usually off and on a lot. This is also semi-important. I go to my mom's Mondays through Fridays, and on Fridays, my dad picks me up from school and I go to his house till Sunday. Well, one day on a Friday, my stepmom comes to the school to pick me up. She does every once in a while, so I didn't really question it. On the way home, she was acting really nice to me, but strange at the same time. She said that she was going to take me to some ice cream shop and she needed my phone for GPS because apparently hers died. About 40 minutes later, I asked her, I was like, how far is this ice cream shop? And for about 2 hours, she kept saying, we're almost there, we're almost there. We then arrive at some hotel and then she said my dad was going to meet us there. Everything just started to seem really off to me, so I asked her for my phone back. She then replies with no. Then I ask her why, and get ready for this. She says, because I'm your new mom, so I'm your boss. I'm running out of time, like for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how I almost got kidnapped by my crazy ex-stepmom. Continuing on with the story, after she told me that she was my new mom, I looked at her and I was like, excuse me? Mind you, this conversation is taking place outside of the hotel. She said, daughter, no more questions. If you cooperate, you'll just make your life so much easier. So we check into the hotel and I'm literally just sitting on the bed staring at the wall. She tells me I have to earn her trust to be able to have my phone back. My mom and dad both have me on Life 360, so I was really just hoping that they'd figure out where we are and come get me. So this crazy lady ends up taking me to McDonald's. I was starving, so I got some chicken nuggets, and we went back to the hotel and ate it there. She was trying to act like everything was all cool, like she normally does, but I was honestly freaking out. Then she comes to tell me that me and her will be moving to Mississippi by ourselves, and I will become one of her own. Guys, at this point, I'm literally panicking, and I have no idea what to do. I was only 12 at the time, so I wasn't really that intelligent. Then we hear like 5 multiple bangs on the hotel door. I'm running out of time, like for part 3. Part 3 of how I almost got kidnapped by my crazy ex-stepmom. Continue on with the story. After we hear like 5 loud bangs on the door, we open it. Well, she opens it. She made me hide in the bathroom corner. And it was the police. I mean, I knew they would come because my crazy ex-stepmom is honestly really stupid. But just wait till I end up finding out what she was actually gonna do with me. They end up searching the hotel and finding me. So there were 3 policemen in the room. She was handcuffed already, and they had her on the bed talking to her, I guess. A couple seconds later, we hear a knock on the door, and I was thinking it was my mom or dad. No, it was 2 big men that she was trying to sell me to. Yes, 2 big men that she was going to sell me to. She was legit gonna sell me to sex trafficking. I think that's what it's called, I'm not sure. She's in jail and so are the 2 men. I'm not really sure what went on with them 3. My mom did end up coming to get me, and my dad also drove up there just to apologize to me. My mom didn't let me see him for a while. But my mom and me ended up moving far just to be safe.
Storytime, my dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. A little background information. This all happened a few years ago. Anyways, my brother was fresh out of high school and he had been dating this girl named Serena for 2 years. And my dad, for some reason, hated her. At least that's what we thought. Well, my brother didn't have a license at the time, so every time that she came over, she needed somebody to drop her off at home. So my dad would always offer to drop her off at home, even though he literally hated her. And he could have just ordered her an Uber, which is what he did with all of my friends. Well, the one night her parents called and they were like, hey, like, is Serena still there? She hasn't came home yet. And my dad said that he was dropping her off. So I called my dad and he said that they ran out of gas on the side of the road. So that was just like one incident. Well, the next morning my mom goes to get in the car for work and she finds a thong in the car. So she brings it in the house and she asks me, hey, is this yours? Meanwhile, I had never seen them before. So then she goes and asks my half-brother and my dad's whose they are, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. So like I said, my mom found that thong in the car. She came and asked me if it was mine. I said no. So then she asked my dad and my brother whose they were. So she asked my dad first. He said, I don't know whose they are. He said they probably just fell out of Serena's bag. And then she asked my brother. And my brother said, oh, those are Serena's. So after that, my brother came in my room. And he was like, do you think it's weird that the same underwear that Serena was wearing before she left ended up in the car? So I guess she had the underwear on literally before she fucking left the house. Dumb bitch alert. Anyway, so a few weeks later, Serena breaks up with my brother. Well, around the same time, my dad started staying after work really late, like every day of the week. Well, long story short, my mom went through his phone because she felt like something was going on, and she reads a conversation between my dad and Serena. Like, oh, I'm so sad that you couldn't come to the ultrasound. So then my mom and him divorced, and he's currently raising his child with Serena. Story time, my boyfriend found out that his best friend got me pregnant. It was my junior year in high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for 4 months. Well, the one night him, his friend, and I were all supposed to go to this party. My boyfriend ended up getting called into work that night, so his friend and I went. Which my boyfriend was fine with because he wanted his best friend to keep an eye on me, but he also trusted us. Anyway, so his friend and I ended up going to the party, and then but the next morning I woke up, I didn't remember that at all. So fast forward, I find out that I'm pregnant. Well, me forgetting that I totally cheated on my boyfriend, I thought that it was his. Well, a week later, I get a text from his friend. And he's like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what are we gonna do? So then he filled me in on the whole situation that I didn't remember. But I was like, there's really no chance of this because my boyfriend and I fucked like a million times and me and you fucked once. The real tea is that my boyfriend was black and his friend was white. Well, me being the bitch that I am, I was like, well, let's just wait it out. I bet it's not his, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend found out that his best friend got me pregnant. So like I said, my boyfriend was black, his best friend was white, and because I doubted that it was his best friend's kid, I decided to wait it out. Say it with me, bad idea. So fast forward, I'm in the delivery room and I decide not to have my boyfriend in there. Well, let's just say good thing that he did. Bitch, whenever this thing popped out, it was white as fucking paper. So I was like to the doctor, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have a panic attack. Please get the baby out of the room. I don't want anybody around the baby right now. So when my boyfriend came back in the room, I was like, oh, we can't see the baby. He's having some issues. He's over here freaking out. I'm having a fucking panic attack about what I'm gonna do. And they brought my kid back and I was like, that's not my kid. And this girl looked so confused. She was like, oh, okay. And my boyfriend and I are laughing. We're like, oh, haha, that's funny. Then she comes back into the room and she's like, ma'am, this is your kid. So my boyfriend started screaming, and he broke up with me after that. Like, how rude to just leave me with a kid by myself. No, I'm just joking. I know that was pretty fucked. Story time about my shitty-ass ex-boyfriend. So a little background information. My ex and I have been dating for about 2 years. And throughout those 2 years, he was a dick. He would cheat on me, talk to other girls more than me, but of course I pretended that everything was perfect in my relationship. I would brag to all these people about how my relationship was so good, blah blah blah, and everything else. Because it's embarrassing whenever bitches can talk shit because your relationship is very toxic. Like, listen to this bullshit. The whole 2 years we were dating, I had over 10 girls DM me on Instagram saying that they screwed my boyfriend at his house. I never confronted him about it. I was just one of those girls that cared way too much about what everybody else thought. Okay, now fast forward. And it was a Friday at school, and Thanksgiving break was the following day. And him and I have this whole plan to spend the whole break together, because literally a week before that, he was on vacation in North Carolina for 2 whole weeks. Well, instead of going with him after school, I decided to go home, get an overnight bag like for part 2. Part 2 about my shitty ex-boyfriend. So like I said, the original plan was for us to go together to his house after school. But I was like, I'm going to be spending the whole week over there. I should probably pack some clothes and get a shower. So after school, he drove me to my house. And he said that his parents wanted to have dinner together, so he had to go back to his house. And he would pick me up later. So when I got to my house, I got ready and everything, blah, blah, blah. And by this time, it was like 8 o'clock. Well, I kept texting and calling him, asking him where he's at, if he's coming to get me still. Then I realized that none of my text messages were going through. So then I go to text him on Snap. And what do you know? I couldn't find him on there. And then I call him off my mom's phone. He answers the phone and hangs up right away. Well, we were supposed to have a little party at his house too, that all of my friends were going to. So I texted every single one of them. None of them answered the phone. And I remembered that my one friend had shared her location with me before. So I went and looked at her location and where was she at? My boyfriend's house. Story time about how I walked in on my fiance and another man. So a little background information. My fiance and I have been together for 4 years. And we started dating our junior year of high school. Well, we all went to Florida after we finally got engaged. And he invited his best friend and I invited my best friend. And I always got vibes that he was like really touchy with his best friend and just like other guys. But I was definitely not one of those people who was about to tell my boyfriend how to act. During Truth or Dare or something, someone would dare him to kiss like a guy and he would just do it. And I didn't really get any off vibes from that because I just did not think that way. So like I said, we all invited our friends to Florida. Well, I think like the third night that we got there, we all decided to go to the club and we were having a super good time. Like everybody was just doing their own thing. I was with my girls, we were hanging out, taking shots. My boyfriend and his best friend, they were doing body shots off of each other. But my boyfriend said that he had drank too much, so his best friend took him back to the hotel room. Y'all will not believe what happened next. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I found my boyfriend and his best friend hooking up. So like I said, my boyfriend's best friend took him back to the hotel room. And I really wanted to spend time with him because we were only supposed to be there for like 3 days. So I decided I would go back to the hotel room early to go see him and make sure that he was okay. Well, I get to the hotel room and all the lights are off. It's very quiet and I think that everybody's sleeping. So I take my shoes off and I go to our room. And nobody's in there. So I go to his best friend's room, and when I open the door, I see him and his best friend laying on the bed naked, making out. I literally stood there in shock for like 2 minutes, and they just like did not hear me, did not look over, did not see me or anything. Eventually, I literally was like, what the fuck? And they both look over, and my boyfriend is literally, it's like he saw a fucking ghost. So I leave the room, he gets dressed, he comes over to me, and he starts talking to me. Like for part 3.
Give me something to hold on to. 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 We going up, yeah, we going up, baby. Give me.
My wife, 38 female, is convinced that she is pregnant even though every pregnancy test, store-bought and medical, comes back negative. It's taking a toll on our marriage because she thinks that I'm going to abandon her and our twins. So this is all over the place. I really need help. My wife and I, male 42, have been married for 2 years, together for 15. All this time we had either not decided to have kids or had problems getting pregnant. After some medical testing, we found out that it was near impossible to get pregnant due to some medical issues with her. We were thinking of adopting when one day she came home and told me that she was expecting. Of course, I was super happy. A week later, we had an appointment to the gyno and she had some blood drawn. The test came back negative and of course, I was devastated, but she wasn't. She claimed that she was pregnant and that the doctor was wrong. We took some more store-bought ones and they all came back negative. My wife is in complete denial. Now she claims that we're having twins. She's buying them clothes and decorations and is pressuring me to start with a nursery. I am at a loss and I don't know what to do. My inaction is making her believe that I want to leave them and that I'm going to doom my wife into the life of a single mom. What the hell is even happening? I love her, but I don't know what to do. Edit, forgot to add, I have tried talking her into therapy, but she accuses me of gaslighting her. And now in the comments, call the doctor who did the pregnancy tests and leave a message with the emergency number. They will be able to tell you who to contact. She has obviously had some sort of mental break. Just an FYI, at 19 weeks you would have had ultrasound pictures and gender determination, and she would have had several OBGYN visits. Is she doing practical things like taking prenatal vitamins and reading books, or is it all delusional and talk? Just wondering how far she's taking this scenario. And OP replies, I know. Also, she isn't showing at all. She is thin as always. Yes, she says that she can't lift heavy things, says she has pregnancy cravings, she buys clothes for the twins, she's even planning to take paid time off from work when the babies are here. This is really frightening, like those stories of people taking babies from a pregnant woman. You need to get her help ASAP. Was she all of a sudden 19 weeks, or has this been going on a while? What spurred her into thinking she was initially pregnant? Have you seen her have her period in this time so you can point out the obvious? And OP replies, she claimed she was pregnant about a week ago, but as of Friday, she says she's entered her 19th week. I really don't know what brought her to think that. She jumped to 19 weeks because she thinks the false negatives are due to the hook effect, which is a real thing where one of two things happens. 1. The HCG, pregnancy hormone that is detected in pregnancy tests, levels rise rapidly during your first few weeks of pregnancy, and then drop off, and then slowly rise again until birth. Sometimes, if you test in the drop-off phase, you get a false negative because the HCG levels are too low. Most tests expect you to test within the first months of pregnancy. Or 2, the HCG levels are so high that they don't form the molecule structures that the tests are looking for. There is also a theory that having twins can cause false negatives due to this secondary effect. I guarantee you she is reading all of this stuff online, and it's growing wild in her brain. I know this because this happened to me, on a less severe scale, when I was 18. I woke up one morning feeling sick out of nowhere, and my period was late, so I was convinced I was pregnant. I was on the pill, but I figured it had failed, and I panicked because I absolutely did not want that, especially with the person that I was with at the time. The tests I bought were negative, but I figured I was just testing too early. Then I got my period, but it was shorter than normal. More tests were still negative. Months went by, and I still felt nauseous in the mornings. I got acid reflux, bad bloating, and weird periods. Sometimes I had barely anything, other times it was spotting that lasted 2 months. I didn't tell anyone that I thought I was pregnant, but I just assumed that it was inevitable and that eventually we would find out for sure. I then went to the doctor about the spotting, and he just prescribed me higher estrogen pills. After a week on them, I felt several times worse. I had broken up with my boyfriend by then, so I just stopped taking them until I could go back on the others, and I very quickly felt much better. This was 7 months into my pregnancy, quote-unquote. To this day, I think it was a combination of the hormone pills that didn't work with me and severe stress. I spent way too much time learning about this online, but I didn't make myself part of the messed up cryptic pregnancy community because I didn't want to be pregnant. 11 years later, looking back, I should have gotten psychological help to process everything and recognize what was real and what wasn't. She needs help, whether it is voluntary or not. This will not get better on its own. And back up to the post, OP offers a little update/edit. Thank you guys. You really helped me out. Yesterday was a bad day, and you helped me get clarity. I've had a chat with our doctor who will now be handling this with us. I would like to thank most of you with useful advice, and hopefully I will be able to update good news someday. But an FU to those who said that I should divorce her because she is crazy, and an extra FU to the guy that used this post to push his anti-abortion agenda. And now on to the update. So it's not been that long, but I need again advice from you guys about the same topic. I called up our primary doctor and told him about the problem. He seemed very concerned and wanted us to come see him the next morning. He said that it was important to be gentle, but not feed into her delusions. I sat her down and we talked. All she wanted to talk about is when I would get the nursery started, and that we were on a time crunch, and how she has found a perfect color for the room, how she wants me to be more involved in her pregnancy. I tried to be very calm, but I was very perturbed by seeing her that way. I asked her to go to the doctor's with me tomorrow. She said yes, that she wanted to check on the babies either way. Now, I took some advice and words you gave me about being calm, and asked a bit about why she thinks she's pregnant without calling her delusional. So I did. She kept changing subjects or saying that a mother just feels it. You wouldn't know how it is. Then I said that I loved her really much, that I would never think of leaving her, but we need to go to the doctor to confirm her gut feeling. She then got very agitated and was crying, telling me that if I wanted to leave her, I should simply leave, but I shouldn't call her a liar. Somehow I managed to calm her down enough for her to go to sleep. After she did, I went on her computer. I do never snoop on her, but I remember a commenter pointing out forums about cryptic pregnancy, so I went in for a look. Oh boy, she was in 2 Facebook groups. One was a normal mummy Facebook group, and the other was a group about women that believed they were pregnant. In the normal group, she would post updates about her symptoms and pictures of her belly and her story about how she was almost not able to have children, but that to the grace of God that kissed her tummy, the gift of life was given to her, and how she was compensated for all these years of suffering with twins. In the other group, the women were quite literally, and excuse me here, effing insane. They were feeding into each other's delusions. A woman said that she was almost 2 years pregnant, and how sometimes it just takes longer. My wife would post there complaining about doctors that do not take her seriously, and about me. Some women were making her fear that I would leave, saying things like men cannot stick to a woman. Many recounted their stories about how their marriages broke down because their spouses could not handle the pregnancy. I was really effing scared. I researched phantom pregnancies, and I read somewhere that that could also be a sign of schizophrenia, so to say the least, I could not sleep. I was, and am still, very afraid of losing her. She woke up, and I tried to act like nothing was wrong. We were going to the doctor, and it was as if nothing had happened yesterday. She was convinced that we were going to a pregnancy checkup. Things got really bad when we began talking to the doctor. He was really tactful when talking to my wife. He tried to explain to her that it was medically impossible that she was pregnant. We tried to show her tests, the ultrasound we did the day before, but nothing. She got more agitated and began to cry and scream at me for making her look like a crazy person. She began bouncing back and forth and holding her head with both hands. We could not calm her. She went in on a full-on panic attack. She could not breathe. The doctor laid her down and tried giving her some medicine for her to relax, but it didn't help as she didn't have the necessary tools to treat a panic attack that was that bad. She had to go to the hospital where they took care of her, did an EKG to exclude that she was suffering a heart attack. At that point, I really had no other option than to inquire about involuntary commit. So I could not do it myself. I needed my doctor's statement that she was a danger to herself and others, and he had to initiate the process of an involuntary examination of 72 hours. After that, we will have to submit a written statement to the court to determine whether or not she can stay there against her will. So far, I have submitted all of her posts in both Facebook groups, as well as the test we did with timestamps when possible. My wife is 2 days into the 3 days examination, and I have no contact with her. When I last saw her, she was furious with me. She said I was taking away her freedom, which I am. I feel horrible, dirty, and useless. She is so mad at me. I feel like I'm abandoning her, and I don't know how she will ever forgive me for this. I love her with all of my heart. I'm afraid of what will happen if the courts decide that I can't commit her, how our life will be affected, and I feel like I failed to protect her. At this point, I'm just rambling. Sorry for the long post. I guess I just need to vent because I have no one else to really turn to that just wants to listen. I feel judged by everyone and pitied. I just hate it, and I'm sorry for the spelling mistakes. Edit, I will not leave my wife, you unempathetic dickheads. When I gave my vows, I meant through illness and bad times. I am not only on the ride for the good times. If you truly love someone, you will do whatever it takes to see them healthy again. Would you leave your spouse if they went through a severe physical illness? I'm here to stay. I will not divorce her. She is not a frickin' psycho. She is sick. I hope no one of your loved ones ever has to go through this because their support net will consist of cowardly dickheads. Sorry for the rant, but if you want to say something like divorce that nut, then don't even bother. I understand people that make the choice to leave when the situation begins to mess with their mental health, and I respect that, but I won't do that. Edit 2, my wife didn't have a heart attack. She was examined because panic attacks register with similar symptoms as heart attacks. I don't exactly know what our doctor gave her, as I was so distraught, but it was not a sedative. I think it was something along the lines of Valium or Baldrian. Over-the-counter stuff mostly. She has family, but she is estranged from most of them. Her sister is now at our place to help. And now in the comments, I used to work in the involuntary commitment system. Everyone is upset with their loved ones when they get committed. Everyone. And it's a normal thing for family members and partners to feel a ton of guilt. But your wife needs help. You took the steps to get her that help, even though it was scary. You will not regret this. I had to involuntarily commit my husband. He has PTSD, and I got a phone call at work 40 minutes away in a different county that he loved me and that I shouldn't feel bad. I had to call 911 bawling my eyes out, knowing that he was having a bad week, and then call the emergency line for the county he was in. They connect you to the nearest one. When the police broke the door down, he was in the bathroom. He hid the razor before he came out. He was so mad at me. He hated me. He wanted a divorce. He never wanted to see me again. And to be honest, I was pretty angry too, not because of his mental illness, but because I felt so helpless. I wanted to say after a week of the adjusted meds, he called apologizing. He told me how thankful he was that I had called. He was thankful that I didn't budge on him being committed. He was thankful that he had someone who knew him well enough to know that he wasn't manipulating me. He had been pushing me away, which is a sign of being suicidal, and we had been fighting a lot because of it. You did the right thing, OP. You definitely have done the right thing for her well-being, no matter how angry she is now. She'll see it one day. I'm a schizophrenic, and I just want to say that once the doctors narrow down possibilities and diagnose her with something, she can then get treatment. I was involuntarily committed, twice actually, and those times I was so out of my mind that I don't even remember it once I was medicated. But according to my relatives, I was a woman possessed. So angry and threatening them, only to be weeping seconds later and begging them not to let them take me. I've apologized to them many times since about what I put them through, but it's hardly something that I wish to happen, and they understand that. I'm sure once she is treated and somewhat stable, she will understand why you did what you did. She might not forgive you at first, and she may pull away from you and others because it feels absolutely humiliating at first that you were so out of it you had to be sectioned. It may take some time, but you absolutely did the best thing for her and yourself. And now onto the final update. Hi guys, it's me again. We have a lot of time on our hands, so I thought why not update the community that helped me, even if it was just to let them know that I could vent. I don't even know how much time has passed, but I am very happy to say that things are working out. I have my wife's permission to share this with you all, and she's even telling me to greet you. After being in the 72-hour stay, it was determined that she had to stay there. My wife was pissed for the first few weeks. It was a devastating time, but time in therapy heals all wounds. Slowly, I was allowed to come visit, and every day I went, I saw a bit more of the person I loved. There were setbacks along the way, and I had to watch a lot of what I said and did. For example, the first few weeks she wouldn't tolerate touch or something like that. Our trust had to be regained slowly from both parties. We put so much work in, and even now that she's back home, and has been for a while, she sometimes has bad days where it's difficult for my wife to get out of bed, or where I am suspicious of her getting back into that state. But at the end of the day, I am happy. We go to counseling together, and we're on individual therapy as well, especially because due to stress I developed a form of anxiety, but every day it is a bit better. I have discovered new sides of my wife, like the new hobby that she has of making resin jewelry and decorations. Even our quarantine time has been quite peaceful. We still have remote therapy and everything. Things are not normal yet, and adoption is not back on the table as of now. We have given ourselves at least a year of therapy before we think about parenting and raising a child. One thing is for certain though, I am still in love with my wife and I still love her so much. Our relationship might not be better than ever, but it sure as hell is stronger than ever. Also, she has done a lot of self-reflection, and of course she has thanked me for how I handled things. She is lovely, and we are happy. And now in the comments, good on you for helping your wife get the help that she needs. That was a terrible experience, but you really stepped up. Even if things aren't perfect, you have both come a long way. I am so happy for you. Good to hear that things are looking up and you won't be considering adoption in the near future. Matter of fact, might be a good time to use some of those therapy sessions to start preparing yourselves for the likely possibility that you won't ever be able to adopt. Agencies have to say that an applicant's mental history isn't an automatic deal killer, but in reality, it often is. They simply cannot risk adopting out children to people suffering from such extreme mental illness that involuntary stays were required. It is all but a guarantee that they would never allow children to be placed under your wife's care. Thank God he took her to the doctor. He didn't tell us what the final diagnosis was, and that's fine, but I can only imagine how frightened he was for her. It sucks that so many of the original commenters were telling him that she was crazy and that he should leave. He made it very clear that he meant his marriage vows, and people should have respected that. You know, Reddit is filled with young people who have never been in a long-term relationship in their lives, and it is painfully obvious. So many people are ready to drop others like a rock because they are no longer convenient. Yeah, exactly. Someone acts strangely on a first date? That's not your problem, and you don't need to see them again. Your long-term partner starts acting strangely? You are there to support them through anything and everything. Well, mostly yes, but there are limits. Violent spouses, repeatedly relapsing addicts, and any cases where one person just isn't able to help, but will be dragged down to hell with their partner. Bad luck and honest effort will get my support. Neglect and abuse will not. I love this guy. I am entirely in his corner, rooting for him, his wife, and their future. As someone who has been through horrific mental health crises, it is so good to see how upset he gets when people suggest divorce. He is so in love that he sees her as a whole, not just for the short hiccups in life. I hope that as a part of her therapy, she stays off of social media. Those Facebook groups can be so toxic when it comes to actually helping. Yes, some of the worst advice I have ever seen has come from those groups, always touted as the truth. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for getting upset and telling my dad his girlfriend didn't buy me a Starbucks drink?" I, 17 female, have been living with my dad, 45 male, his girlfriend of 2 years, 33 female, and her daughter, 13 female, for a couple of months now, while my mum, 40 female, is visiting my sick grandfather in Sweden. I have only ever stayed at my dad's on weekends, so it's been hard to get used to living with his girlfriend and her kid full time. The kid is super whiny and pretty spoiled because the girlfriend dotes on her, so I usually just stay in my room. Today, girlfriend was taking her daughter on a special outing because she passed a math test, and my dad suggested I go with them for a girls' day out. I wanted to say no, but I knew that he wanted me to get to know his girlfriend and girlfriend's daughter better, so I agreed. He gave girlfriend $300 to spend during the outing. We spent the day going in and out of stores that girlfriend's daughter liked in the mall complex. Girlfriend ended up buying her a crap ton of clothes, makeup, and other stuff that I don't remember. On our way back home, girlfriend stopped at the Starbucks because daughter wanted a drink and some cake pops. She ordered a drink for her and her daughter and 2 cake pops. I asked her if I could get something, and she said that she ran out of money and she'd get me something next time. When they got their order, I asked if I could have some of the cake pops, and girlfriend said that it was her daughter's treat for hard work, and it would be wrong for me to take one since I didn't do anything that deserved being rewarded. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty upset. When we got back home, my dad saw their drinks and asked where mine was. I told him that I wasn't allowed to get one because I don't deserve it. His girlfriend got upset and said that I was twisting her words, and the daughter just said that I was just being greedy and was jealous of her. I know that I'm not entitled to a drink or a cake pop, but I also don't think that it's wrong to be a little annoyed. Am I the asshole? God, I just hate it when people are so conniving like this. Because those are definitely reasons that a lot of people, I imagine, get in their day-to-day lives when they're on the receiving end of favoritism like this. Oh yeah, sorry, we're out of money. I can only get it for me and my daughter. We'll have to get you one next time. Oh, you didn't do anything that deserved being rewarded. You don't deserve anything, I'm sorry. Those words are just such a punch in the gut, especially for someone at 17 years old. This girlfriend is a complete piece of trash and absolutely not the asshole on your end. And now in the comments, oh sweetie, not the asshole. And I want you to know that you absolutely were entitled to a drink and a cake pop or another treat of your choosing. Your dad gave her $300 that was meant to be spent on all three of you for the day out. Sure, her daughter may have earned something special for her hard work at school, but from the sound of it, he intended for all of you to get treated a bit. And it's disgusting that she would go to a coffee shop and get things for herself and her daughter, and not for you. As someone older than your dad even, I can tell you that his girlfriend's behavior was super not okay, and not the way she should be treating her partner's kid. None of my friends would ever treat their stepkids or partner's kids that way in a million years. I am so sorry that happened to you, and I'm really glad that you told your dad. She deserves to get yelled at. And OP replies, thank you. You have really made me feel better. You were nowhere in the wrong for being annoyed about the way that they treated you, and the two of them should be ashamed of themselves for manipulating the situation, and by extension your father, once they got called out for their nasty behavior. The $300 was for all three of you. The least they could have done was give you a $3 cake pop. The fact that they didn't even want to do that should be a clear indication to your father that they cannot be trusted around you. OP deserved every single cake pop that store had for enduring the girlfriend's blatant cruelty while still maintaining her composure. OP, you have more class, maturity, and patience than many adults. I know you may doubt if telling your dad was the right thing, but let me assure you that you handled it perfectly. If you made a scene in the store or yelled at her on the car on the way home, the girlfriend would have used that to manipulate the narrative with your dad. She would have gone on the offense the instant she saw him, saying how problematic you were by throwing a temper tantrum the whole time. When you would naturally react to deny her lies, she would point at you and say, "See what I mean? She just keeps arguing and being disrespectful. You should have seen how embarrassing she was at the mall." When you remained composed until your dad asked where your drink was, you took away some of your girlfriend's power. You also stood up for yourself, which I am so incredibly proud of you for. That woman was depending on your silence, thinking that she had crushed your spirit. She didn't succeed because of your inner strength and resolve. I want you to be proud of yourself for that. I know that you aren't really a child anymore, but there is still a lot of things that you learn over time with experience. Eventually, you are going to look back at this moment and realize how much more heartless the girlfriend is than you had thought. She is likely seeing you as competition for your father's time, money, and love. To be so callous towards you shows a serious gap in compassion and empathy, but it goes beyond that. She willfully chose to hurt you, trying to make you feel like an interloper. Please believe me when I say absolutely none of her behavior was your fault. You did nothing wrong to deserve such treatment. Her actions are because of her own problems. I know that I'm just an internet stranger, but I truly am proud of you. And now on to the update. So I just finished talking to my dad. I explained everything that happened at the mall, and he apologized and said that he'll be returning everything that was bought and will be taking a day off work tomorrow so we could do something together. He also put up girlfriend and daughter in a hotel so that I can have space from them, and said they'll be staying there until my mum gets back. Once I'm ready to see them, he said they will apologize to me, and once my mum comes back, he is going to have a talk with girlfriend. And now in the comments, wow, your dad is awesome. Actually paying attention to his daughter's needs and not dismissing the BS the girlfriend is trying to pull. Now he just needs to cut her loose for her treatment of you, and he'd be near perfect, since we all have room for improvement. This is an amazing update. I love that your dad is returning all the things bought. It may help daughter be a little less entitled. I'm still tending towards thinking that possibly your dad had an inkling that something like this was going on, and that's why he asked about the Starbucks. Many dads would be just like, oh, she's already finished her drink, so great work on your dad. That's a good point. $300 is quite an odd number, and it's pretty clear that he intended $100 per person, so everyone will be covered. He knew girlfriend was going to pull something like this. It probably wasn't the first time. OP said her dad always watched out for her, so he has definitely noticed something like this going on for some time now. It's sad that it's a pleasant surprise on Reddit to see a parent actually siding with their kid, but I'm glad for OP. If it makes you feel better, happy people don't tend to post on Am I the Arsehole, so there's probably way more good parents than it seems. Dear Reddit, today I had a nice outing with my parents. There were no arguments, just a pleasant time out. Unfortunately, it's just not very noteworthy. In the wise words of Florence Welch, the older I get, I find that happiness is an extremely uneventful subject. The fact that dad pushed for them to have a girls' day kinda tells me that it was supposed to be fun for everyone, but girlfriend just decided, nah, let's be a total cow, F my partner's kids, only we deserved good things. Never understood people that picked partners with kids and then decide to treat said kid like crap intentionally. Maybe don't date a single dad then? And no, of course someone's kid is not their whole personality, yada yada, but they kinda come in a package deal. Some people are so petty that they think this is the perfect partner for me, except for this obsession with insert anything they really care about here, and spend the entire relationship trying to separate them from it. Hobbies, family members, tastes, whatever. In their mind, they are helping the partner to achieve their best selves. That consists in following their standards. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.